First up, I guess, is this kind of rounds out our coverage of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny because it's kind of like a Viking longboat that's been set on fire and now it's just like sinking beneath the waves. The box office for it is as up to date as it can be at this moment. It's been out now since June 30th, and it's currently standing at $255 million worldwide, according to Box Office Mojo. Wow. And that's like against a budget of at least $300 million, potentially $350 million, given Hollywood accounting, plus another $150 million or so of marketing spend. So that's about $500 million they spent on this movie. And so far they've made $255 million at the box office. So they'll get about half of that.
Just don't worry, though. It'll go on Disney Plus eventually. Disney Plus will make all the money back.
Oh, yeah.
That.
And then they'll retire it from Disney Plus.
It'd be so funny if it got deleted from Disney Plus like Willow did. I mean, the way this is tracking, I mean, what are we predicting this is going to top out at? Like 350 maybe by the end of its run? I mean, already, like, it's been displaced by Insidious and Mission Impossible, so...
Yeah, man, like... Oh god, what can it rake in at this point? It's got to be dead. That's got to be it.
I wonder when they're going to start cutting theaters because, well, I imagine Disney's got some kind of deal in place with these distributors where it's like you have to keep showing it for a certain amount of time, but they must be desperate to move on for it because no one's watching it.
Well, I mean, why would they, right? Who the fuck would recommend this film to anyone ever?
Yeah, they've already moved it out of the big IMAX screens and whatnot. I mean, Mission Impossible is on the Dolby Digital and IMAX screens, so it's moved. And also, you can check the screenings are empty. I mean, you can go on any of these ticket booking apps, and you can see how empty it is. It's really sad that it's going to make under $500 million, and that's just insane.
So
yeah, I was alone when I saw it.
Oh my god, it's crazy.
Yeah. My screening was pretty empty, and that was like opening day as well.
I went opening day. I was the only person who booked in advance. Literally the only person. I went there thinking, "Oh, will I get my favorite seat?" And then looked, like, yes, I definitely will. There's literally nobody here. And
it's like I got my
there were one person walked in after me, and that was it. So there were two people in the cinema. That was opening day over in this country. By comparison, Mission Impossible went same day, same time, same cinema. I think it was even the same screen and 80% full. So I'd forgotten what that was like, actually, but it was quite nice.
Nice to be in a busy cinema. But yeah, I mean, I guess we're looking at this point about probably a couple $100 million in terms of losses for Lucasfilm when all's said and done. I mean, this is calamitous. The first movie that they've even put out in, 4 years? And it loses them hundreds of millions of dollars. I mean, where can they possibly go from here? I mean, this is truly disastrous territory. Yeah, I mean, like, can that even get commissioned at this point? Like,
it's surprising there aren't a horde of bean counters that are like, no. Make something that even has a chance of making money, please.
I just don't know what they could even make at this point that could make money, that would have any chance.
No, I mean, there's reason to shut it all down at this point, Lucasfilm.
I'd probably look to offload it, just try and sell it off to someone, and because it's just a loss maker at this point. You're not generating.
Though theoretically, Star Wars is the only thing they have left, which could still bring in money. So obviously, Solo lost money, but as far as I know, all the sequels, though they declined in profit, made a profit, and it was still a fair amount of money. So the fact that it's declining is outweighed by the fact that it's still money coming in. So if they are getting desperate, I would have thought they'd try and pump out at least one more Star Wars before they go.
It's unclear yet how much damage the Disney Plus shows have done to Star Wars as a movie brand, because obviously Mandalorian was finishing up right around when Rise of Skywalker came out. So we never really, and people liked season 1 of Mandalorian, thought it was new and fresh and cool, and so that was all kind of, but like after Boba Fett, Obi-Wan, Mando season 3, this other stuff, it's just like, what is the state of the average Star Wars fans' movie interest right now? And I think they know about as much as we do in terms of, like, I don't know, man. Like, it's dangerous out there to risk. Because did Rise of Skywalker make over $1 billion?
Just over. It just scraped over. But I mean, if you look
at the lowest of the new trilogy,
yeah, and if you think like that's essentially got the the momentum of the previous two movies carrying it. I mean, if it's the concluding chapter of a trilogy, that should generate interest by itself. You know, there's going to be people who just wanted to see how it ended, and there's people like us who were just watching the car crash. But now what they're talking about is like a trio of just standalone movies with no particular connection between them. They're all set in different time periods, and there's nothing to draw people in, really. I mean, I'm sure they would love the idea of doing this Rey movie, and it spawns like a whole, you know, trilogy of its own because it's so massively successful. It's not going to happen, though. Nobody's going to be that invested in watching it, and so. Yeah, I don't even know what the benchmark for success would be with any of these films.
I think the Rey one is the most probable one, the most likely one to happen, I'd say, as well, because the Filoni one is contingent upon the success of the Filoni shows on Disney Plus, and as Morta says, nobody really gives a damn about those, rightly so. I don't think that one will happen. And then there's the other one, which is set right back at the beginning, with the origin of the Jedi, which it actually sounds like a pipe dream to me. So the Rey movie it now looks like it's the only plausible one they could put out.
Yeah.
Which says something about the dire state they find themselves in.
Yeah,
I'd love to see the money it pulls in, because at this point, you know, I don't think it'd do as bad as maybe Indiana Jones, but like it could be Ant-Man levels for a Rey movie, I think.
The only way they could make it work is if they made it for like $50 million or something, like dirt cheap, and just, you know.
I don't even know if they know how to do that. I don't know how to spend so little money.
Just the entire thing's just set on Tatooine in front of a volume screen.
You know, what would be funny is like it's like cheap as fuck. It's just Daisy Ridley and a bunch of like sock puppets, and they're like, "Yep, this cost 70 million." And you're like, "How did it cost that?" And they're like, "Well, catering was 50 million." You know, like
yeah.
The KK went through 5 directors before she got to that point as well.
Yeah.
Didn't what's her name? The woman who plays Bo-Katan.
Katie Sackhoff.
Katie Sackhoff, yeah. Didn't she say that, like, you know, the catering budget for The Mandalorian cost more than, like, the whole of Battlestar Galactica? It was, like, just ridiculous how much money was getting wasted on this thing.
I mean,
But
I suppose maybe that's not the one to pick on. If they're actually taking care of people, making sure they're fed, and, you know, I guess that's good. Like, but they do waste money on other shit for sure. Maybe they do waste it on that as well.
Something worth noting is that Kathleen Kennedy can develop as many films as she wants, but if she wants to make a film, which is why she hasn't made a film since, you know, well, I guess Indiana Jones, but not a Star Wars film since 2019. She needs money from Disney to make a film, because development is relatively inexpensive, but making a film she's making 3 Star Wars movies. I don't know that maybe one of them will happen, but I'd be shocked if all 3 of those happen. And by the way, the James Mangold thing was something that's been talked about since the very beginning. I did an interview with Gary Kurtz, the original producer of Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back years ago. That was the original prequels. Originally, the prequels were to begin 25,000 years before the events of A New Hope, about the formation of the Jedi Knights. It was going to be like a Knights of the Round Table, Excalibur type of story, and that was abandoned in favor, of course, what George did with the prequels. I think George was better working with a group of people who could say no to him, namely Marcia Lucas and Gary Kurtz. You know, that could be debated. But, yeah, it's interesting that they're resurfacing old ideas. I mean, you can look that up. So that was the original concept of the prequels.
Is this what you do, basically, when you've got no imagination of your own? You just start, like, turning to what other people suggested years ago, like, oh, okay, well, that's something, I guess, let's work with that.
Yeah, you get rid of the EU. This is what you do. You get rid of the EU, then you use ideas from the EU and pretend you came up with it. That's Kathleen Kennedy's crap.
Smart.
Didn't they kind of do that with Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny? Because there was the Lance of Longinus stuff at the beginning, which I believe is in one of the older comics. There's a quest when Henry Jones goes in search of the Lance of Longinus, which I assume is no longer canon because this film exists now. But yeah, sort of plumbing the depths of people's discarded imaginations is not a good look. Do we think she will be around to oversee any new films, though? So she's tanked Indiana Jones, she's tanked Star Wars, she's tanked Willow, which is Lucasfilm's sort of big, probably the 3 biggest, most best-known things, and her contract's up next year, so is it going to be renewed?
They would have to be fucking nut jobs in order to extend her contract at this point. Like, what possible reason could you have for keeping her on?
I almost want them to. Memes.
I wonder, right? I wonder if her departure will be like one of the stipulations she'll have is that like my vision that I've laid out for Star Wars has to be carried through. Like I want my Rey movie, even if I'm not around to oversee it. Contractually, I want it made, just to really stamp down that authority on Star Wars.
Yeah,
Like
you
it's
could sit her
my
down at a
vision.
table with the person who's coming in to replace her, and the person replacing her can say, "We're going to respect the legacy of your characters, and we're going to respect the stories you've told." And she's sitting there and she's stewing because she knows it's a lie. I'd pay to see that. That would be more entertaining than anything she's actually made.
I cannot see any reason why she would stick around, because there's literally nothing left for her to fuck up or to try and plunder for ideas. Like she's destroyed it all now, and so
Yeah, and even if she tried to destroy anything in Marvel, she'd be walking into a ruin. She'd be like, "Oh, I guess you guys already took care of that."
And I think at this point, there's a pretty reasonable out for her as well, to be able to say, well, look, I'm 70 years old now. I've been in the industry for like, I don't know, 40 years or something. I've done all these amazing films, and I've capped it off with Indiana Jones, you know, where it all started for me. My career's come full circle, and now I can retire with my work complete, you know. That'll be the line. Like behind the scenes, it'd be like, get the fuck out of here, you absolute clusterfuck of a manager. Like you shouldn't be in charge of a Starbucks, never mind a studio. But that'll be what allows her to exit with dignity, I suppose. Because I don't think they're ever going to fire her. They'll never have the balls to fire her publicly. It will be a managed exit with all the fanfare and all the fake praise from everyone.
You think now they're getting? You think now they're getting close to that point, or are we still a few years off?
Like Platoon was saying, her contract is up next year, and so.
Right.
It's if she doesn't go now, then she'll be around for probably a couple more years at least, and it wouldn't make sense, really, from any sort of business standpoint to keep her there. It's like she's done all the things that she set out to do, or ruined all the things she set out to ruin. There's just nothing left for her to work on, really.